Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing climate change, abrupt climate change, and things adjacent. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your comments and your discussion on the previous video. I guess I sparked a little bit of consternation or alarm, or the subject was killing poachers or doing away with poachers on site. Quite a few people. So let me just back up. Most everybody was in favor of the fate that the poacher met at the hands of the elephant and the lion, lions plural. Nobody seemed to have a problem with that. I get, and people really didn't have, a huge problem with me saying that maybe we should kill poachers on site. Some people did. So just to make clear, I'm not advocating violence. I'm not telling people to go out and do some violence. I wasn't suggesting, actually what I was suggesting was an extreme form of defense of wildlife. So there was no actually call to action for violence against people. It was actually in defense of wildlife. And I still hold to what I think. I probably will never change my mind. Some people suggested that maybe we concentrate on billionaires or the wealthy or the corporate class. I don't know. So that is actually a call to violence. That's a call to action. That's a call to maybe we should do something to these people. Right? Because we're not saying don't come over here. Let me hold on one second to try and clarify my point further. I don't know if y'all remember last year there was a story about a missionary who tried to go to an isolated island where these tribes lived. The islands are off limits. People are. It's not that people aren't allowed to go there. They are strongly urged not to go there. And I think that there are actually some laws in place saying if you go try to visit these islands, you might be subject to prosecution. But basically the warning is don't go to these islands because you might get killed, because these people might kill you. They don't want you here. So what happened was this missionary went to this island where these Aboriginal tribes have lived for thousands of years, fairly unmolested. Once in a while, people have gone to visit them, but mostly they are left alone. And this is a wonderful thing. So that's what I'm suggesting for setting up reserves where there are no people. And there's all kinds of different ways to go about this, right? There could be places where there's wildlife and Aboriginal people live there, or tribes as they have lived for thousands of years can be there. There should be places where there's no people at all, because in a lot of instances people tend to do what people do, which is kill off all the animals and destroy the resources. But what happens in those cases, in the case of Aboriginal people, is that if they go into overshoot, or if they don't have enough food, what happens is that people starve and they die. And that's just nature. That's not like a humanitarian crisis. That's just nature. That's nature balancing itself. And that's not cold or heartless or anything. That's just nature. That's what nature does. And so, that's what I'm suggesting for setting up wildlife reserves or preserves or places where human beings cannot go. And the punishment for going there is death, period, the end. So don't go there. It's a very harsh, that's a harsh consequence of disobeying or not, but what happened to this missionary when he went to go visit these Aboriginal people? They killed him. And they didn't, some people suggested, the people that, maybe the missionary's family suggested, like, oh, there should be some justice. No, there's no justice. He went where he wasn't supposed to go and he was killed. That's what happens, so that's called nature. That's called balance. That's called, you did something you weren't supposed to do and you met the consequence of that. So I'm not suggesting that people go out and start killing poachers, wherever they might be, or, I'm suggesting that there be areas and that they be defended mightily against poachers, big game hunters, corporations seeking, oil or minerals or gold or silver, everything, all things must be defended to the death by death. That's what I'm suggesting. So there's no incite. There's no promoting violence. There's just, that's what it is. There are plenty of things that we don't allow people to do. We don't allow, there are laws about raping people or killing people or maiming people or, and obviously, there are lots of things that are not right in the world, right? There are corporations and countries, whole countries like the United States, who go out and just kill people, wherever and whenever they want, and without any kind of backlash or any kind of justice. But for the most part, we have like laws in place and we have things in place where, like, don't do this to people or else the consequences is, whatever it is, jail or sometimes death or whatever. I'm not a huge like death penalty proponent. I'm not really, I'm not into that because justice can be very, murky, and justice can be very unfair, especially in this country. But what I'm talking about is very cut and dry, as in, don't go here. There's a no-go zone. Don't go here. It doesn't matter how you ended up here or if you, oops, just don't go here. And whatever. Anyways, there was a lot of discussion on that, and I found it very interesting. And I thought it might, be a little bit of a spark of a discussion, but I still hold true to this. And I read probably a couple of articles last year, and I believe Hambone read a couple of articles last year about the idea that we should, save half of the earth for wildlife and the other half for humans. And obviously there's lots of problems with that because, we can destroy the entire earth from our side of the earth. But I think that we could go a long way towards restoring wildlife and habitat and restoring a healthy planet if we stopped letting humans go and fish and hunt and do whatever it is we want to do, grow things, deforest. Like, there should just be much more places on the earth, larger expanses of wilderness where we don't get to go, and it's off limits. We don't get to go there. That would be a healthy start for me. And obviously that's part of the rewilding, idea that people have proposed, that, the rewilding idea that was in the Guardian article that I read the other day. I don't know. I'm a fan of this idea. This is one of the things, not the thing, but one of the things that could be done to mitigate or to start the ball rolling in the other direction, if that's what we're going to do. Anyways, it was an interesting discussion nonetheless. And I wanted to move on to some other things. So I'm going to read a comment that I wanted to read in the video yesterday. And the comment goes, the comment is from Malcolm Marzo, and it says, suggestion for a topic, global dimming caused by aerosol masking. Guy McPherson says that if we stop the pollution of industrial society, we will be left unprotected from the full effects of solar radiation and become toast in weeks. He and others say we are trapped into a perverse damned if you do, damned if you don't dilemma, like we all are all on a Boeing 737 Mad Max with the maneuvering characteristics augmentation system. The more you pull up, the more you go down. And that is very true, and that's a very large large and looming problem when we actually get to the subject of, you know, if we start doing these things, if we start reducing our fossil fuel emissions, if we start pulling the sulfates and the layer of junk out, you know, out of the sky, which we need to do in order to stop catastrophic global warming, we induce more warming. I was just watching a video, and I'm going to link the video below, about global dimming, and it's fairly, it's got information, and it's a good map of how scientists discovered the global warming thing and the global warming problem, and it describes the problem. The title of the video is kind of misleading because it says global dimming, the cause of contrails and chemtrails, and there's nothing really in there about, there's a little bit of stuff about contrails saying that, you know, in 9/11, when the planes were on a ground stop for 3 days, there was a measurable difference, daytime high and low difference of about 1°C, and which was quite high for those 3 days. And what they were saying was, you know, from the lack of the contrails, that's what was the cause of the warming. But I wouldn't say it's just specifically contrails. I mean, they were talking about the actual pollution, whatever it is that the planes put into the air. I think it's more than just the contrails or the trails they leave. I think so. You know, they don't really, there's no information in this video about contrails and chemtrails, so just so you know. But anyways, I'm going to link the video. But global warming, global dimming, excuse me, huge problem, because if we're going to go forward and mitigate, if we're going to go down the path of trying to cure or stop or bring down our pollution, or bring down, you know, stop industrial society or civilization from doing the things that it does so well, which is destroy the planet, we put ourselves into a double bind of creating a lot of warming. So what would be, you know, what is the way that we counteract global dimming, or the global dimming effect, or the lack of global dimming? How is it that we could bring down our fossil fuel use and still counteract this effect? I have no idea. Anybody else out there with any idea or any ideas around this, I would love to hear it. I don't know if anybody has put forth, because, you know, we have kind of this roadmap of like, this is what we have to do to fight climate change. We have to, you know, lower our emissions and get off fossil fuels and do renewables and go, you know, or be more, you know, live more closely to the earth, organic agriculture, and, you know, non-meat diet, and stop deforestation, and all of the things that we're doing. Basically not living in an industrial civilization as we do today. Much less industrial civilization and more living off the land, if you will. If we go this route, what is it we can do? Is there anything we can do to combat the global dimming problem? Does anybody know anything about this? As I don't know. And if there's nothing to be done, then there's nothing to be done. But here's an interesting article very quickly I want to cover. The breakthrough that could actually reverse climate change. This is from April 8th, 2019. That would be yesterday. This is from Grist Creative. So we need to have a little talk about concrete. We take it for granted, but concrete is the foundation, no pun intended, of countless buildings, homes, bridges, skyscrapers, millions of miles of highways, and some of the most impressive feats of civil engineering the world has ever known. It's the most widely used human-made substance on the planet. It also happens to be incredibly bad for the climate. Portland cement, the most commonly used base, is made with limestone that is quarried and then heated to staggeringly high temperatures, releasing huge amounts of carbon dioxide in the process. So it goes on to talk about how bad concrete is for the planet and for CO2 generation. But a solution on the so moving down, a solution on the horizon could switch up the math completely. A new method of creating concrete actually pulls CO2 out of the air or directly out of industrial exhaust pipes and turns it into synthetic limestone. The technique, which has already been demonstrated in California, is part of a growing effort to not just slow the advance of climate change, but to reverse it, restoring a safe and healthy climate for ourselves and future generations. Okay, that's, a pretty broad statement and pretty bold statement. And there's probably lots to debate in that statement. But moving on, to do that, the Foundation for Climate Restoration estimates that 1 trillion tons of CO2 must be removed from our atmosphere, 1 trillion, on top of additional efforts to curb emissions. The National Academies of Science agrees that negative emissions technology, as they're known, are essential. And pretty much everybody knows that and admits that. It's a massive undertaking, but if we change how we think about concrete, capturing 1 trillion tons of CO2 may not be so pie in the sky after all. So basically, they're talking about pulling CO2 from the air and making concrete. I don't know if this is a great solution, but it's interesting nonetheless. It sounds like a way to continue killing the planet on a lot of levels. But if we're pulling CO2 from the air somehow, some way, I suppose that's good. I don't know. Let's see. Blue Planet's limestone, created using emissions collected from the Moss Landing power plant on Monterey Bay and other resources, has already been added to concrete in areas of San Francisco International Airport. Constance expects to open its first commercial production facility in the Bay Area within the year, producing a little over 300,000 tons of rock annually with CO2 captured from an adjacent power plant's exhaust stack. Okay. Technology. Constance dreams of having thousands of plants up and running by 2050. Thousands. With most of the resulting rock being used by government agencies to construct roads and buildings. Even the poorest countries in the world are still mining rock in open pit mines, and that's an important aspect to what we're doing. There's already funding out there that is paying for rock. The Foundation for Climate Restoration estimates that getting 30,000 Blue Planet plants running by 2030 would create enough CO2. Oh, create enough CO2 removal capacity. What about the CO2 all that's going to create? That's what I'd like to know. CO2 removal capacity to remove all of the excess CO2 from the atmosphere. Really? Well, that is bold, isn't it? That's a very bold statement. So 30,000 of these plants would need to be built by 2030 and create enough CO2 removal capacity. Okay. The foundation is part of a growing movement for climate restoration, whose goal is to restore climate with CO2 concentration below 300 parts per billion. Okay. And rebuild the Arctic ice. Those actions, its leaders say, will get us back to a climate more like the one our grandparents or great-grandparents lived in. Well, guys, this sounds really optimistic. And I don't know what kind of damage this is going to do as a byproduct. But I'm going to link this article below, and we can discuss this. It's an interesting technology. That's all I have to say. Moving on. Also, I wanted to link a Roger Hallam video, Why Public Disruption is Necessary. I don't know. I find Roger Hallam infectious. His zeal for the path that he's on, and um, his introspection on the problem and what needs to be done. I really, I enjoy listening to the man talk. This is just him talking about, why it's necessary to do what they're doing with Extinction Rebellion. Um, I mean, he's kind of just he's just on a logical path. He's like, look, this is a huge problem, and the only the only reality is taking action. The only, for him anyways, in his mind, the only right action is to take action, and the only answer left in the face of this problem is to do what needs to be done as far as taking action and waking people up. And he doesn't, he just, there's nothing in the way, there's nothing in between, what the problem is and what the action is, and what the logical outcome is. And he fully intends to continue to take action and seek an answer to the problem. And I find that commendable. Hopeless or not, I find it commendable. And so I'm going to link that video. I hope you all enjoy it. And so in Los Angeles, as far as I can tell, Extinction Rebellion is not doing an actual action on April 15th. What they're going to do is a Los Angeles climate camp. So basically they're doing a camp. They're having a series of events between Monday, April 15th and Monday, April 22nd. And what they're doing is basically running a bunch of, getting people together and going through various disciplines in order to take nonviolent action, and talking about various things. They're doing nonviolent direct action training on Monday, April 15th. They're doing introductions, intro questions, meditation. They're making banners, schedules, food storage, etc. So they're doing this all through the week. They're also engaging in painting streets. And so what they're going to do, so their action in Los Angeles is going to happen on April 22nd. That's going to be a day of escalated action. So they don't have, either they don't have that listed on the website, for the reason that they don't want it to be broadcast right now, or maybe they don't know exactly what it is that they're going to be doing. But just so, for the people that are in Los Angeles, this is what's happening around Extinction Rebellion, starting next Monday and going through the following Monday. I am going to possibly try to go down to the climate camp on April 15th on Monday and go check it out and just check in and talk to some people. But most likely I will just, I'm going to try and do that, but I most likely will save my big push as far as trying to cover the, the direct action, the protest itself on April 22nd. I'll probably do more around that, but we'll see. I don't know yet what's going to happen. But I'm going to, for those who are in Los Angeles and who want to take part in this, who want to know what's going on, I'm going to put that link in the description box, and you guys can check that out. Was there a last thing that I wanted to talk about before I end this video? Yes. This is from Arctic News, Monday, April 8th, Blue Ocean Event Consequences. So basically, they're just covering, I talked about the channel Just Have a Think, which is a very good channel. I believe the gentleman is English. And so it's out of the UK, and he does like a weekly climate, he has various talks on various subjects about climate science, and they're quite well done videos. He's getting a lot of subscriptions and a lot of views, and that's great. The more people, the more better. The more people that know about this problem and understand the science around this problem, the better. So basically, Arctic News is recapping his video, talking about a blue ocean event and what the consequences might be. They link his video if you want to watch. I'm going to link this whole blog post in the subscription box, and you guys can watch the video from there, and you can read this blog post. But just to hit some maybe highlights of this blog post. A blue ocean event looks set to occur in the Arctic when there will be virtually no sea ice left. At first, the duration of this event will be a few weeks in September, but as more heat accumulates in the Arctic, the event will last longer each year thereafter. Indeed, a blue ocean event will come with accumulation of more heat due to loss of latent heat as the dark blue ocean absorbs more sunlight than the reflective ice, etc. Consequences will extend far beyond the Arctic. As shown on the image below that features Dave Borlas's Blue Ocean Top 10 Consequences. A blue ocean event could happen as early as September 2019. The image below shows that Arctic sea ice extent on April 7th, 2019 was 12.7 million kilometers, a record low for measurements for this time of year. By comparison, on May 28th, 1985, so that's more than a month, almost 2 months later, the extent was larger, 13 million kilometers, while it was 13.05 million kilometers, while it was 51 days later in the year. There's also a video from Paul Beckwith, also discusses the rapid decline of the sea ice and the consequences. Clearly, the rapid decline of the sea ice has grave consequences when also looking beyond what's happening in the Arctic. There are further events, tipping points, and feedbacks that make things worse. An earlier post contains the following rapid warming scenario. A stronger than expected El Nino could contribute to early demise of the Arctic sea ice, i.e. latent heat, tipping point, plus associated loss of sea ice albedo, destabilization of seafloor methane hydrates, causing eruption of vast amounts of methane that would further speed up Arctic warming and cause terrestrial permafrost to melt as well, resulting in even more emissions, while the jet stream gets even more deformed, resulting in more extreme weather events, causing forest fires, at first in Siberia and Canada, and eventually also in the peat fields and tropical rainforests of the Amazon in Africa and Southeast Asia, resulting in rapid melting on the Himalayas, temporarily causing huge flooding, followed by drought, famine, heat waves, and mass starvation, and the collapse of the Greenland ice sheet. Importantly, depicted above is only one scenario out of many. Things may eventuate in different order and occur simultaneously, i.e., instead of one domino tipping over the next one, sequentially, many events reinforcing each other. Further points should be added to the list, such as falling away of sulfate, cooling due to economic changes, ocean stratification, and stronger storms that can push large amounts of warm, salty water into the Arctic Ocean. Global sea ice extent is also at a record low for the time of year. Global sea ice extent on April 8th, 2019 was 17.9 million kilometers. On April 8th, 1982, global sea ice extent was 22.32 million kilometers, i.e. a difference of 4.42 million kilometers. That constitutes a huge albedo loss. As discussed in an earlier post, this all adds up to further global warming that may eventuate very rapidly. The image below shows how a total rise of 18 C or 32.4 Fahrenheit from pre-industrial could eventuate by 2026. And I will link this below. I've already watched the Just Have a Think video. It's quite good. Highly suggest. I suggest that channel. I guess the guy's name is David Borlas. He does solid work. Raises some very good questions, and pretty much sticks with the science. That's all I have for you tonight. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. Until next time, peace.